Welcome to the kickoff of Detroit's inaugural Welcoming Week. Super excited to be here. I am Councilmember Castañeda Lopez. If you are walking by, please stop and listen and enjoy the presentation that will follow. This is the City of Detroit's first Welcoming Week celebrations, honoring and highlighting the diverse immigrant refugee communities in the City of Detroit. Many folks think Detroit immigrants are newcomers, but in reality, many of the communities that you will hear speak today and featured throughout this week have been in the City of Detroit for generations. I chair the Immigration Task Force on behalf of the Detroit City Council, and we have been working since 2014 to make Detroit a welcoming city. In 2015, we became the 41st welcoming city in the country, and this week's celebration are in partnership with the larger national movement with Welcoming America to build more diverse, inclusive communities throughout the United States. And we know now more than ever, we can give a round of applause. Now more than ever, given the divisive rhetoric at the federal level, that it's our job and our responsibility to lead boldly at the local and city levels to make sure that we are not falling in line with some of the negative policies coming out from the federal government. So we, as the City of Detroit, have worked hard to create the first ever Office of Immigrant Affairs, which was done in 2015. Thank you, Steve. Keep clapping. We also created a language access plan that is funded and is being rolled out as we speak. And we are super excited to welcome today, and you'll hear from him in a little bit, the new director of the Office of Immigrant Affairs, Alberto Torres, who's joining us here tonight. And this week's celebration really is a culmination of lots of hard work from many, many partners, and I'd like to give a quick shout out to them. The International Institute, round of applause for NADA. The Downtown Detroit Partnership for working with us to host this week of celebrations in this space, Spirit Plaza. All of the different City of Detroit departments who worked with us to make this happen, from the Recreation Department to the General Service Department to the Police Department, thank you so much for your partnership. Welcoming Michigan, which is the state branch for Welcoming America. Access, the Mexican Consulate, who we're here from today, the Association of Chinese Americans, the Caribbean Community Service Center, Mexican CDC, and all of the members of the Immigration Task Force. If you're a member of the Immigration Task Force, can I just have you stand up or raise your hand really quickly? Because all of these lovely folks do this on a volunteer basis. So in addition to this being the inaugural Welcoming Week for the City of Detroit, a very important and special announcement was made today, and I'm going to turn it over to the to Director Arthur Jemison, who's going to speak a little bit about Detroit's ranking in of the top 100 cities, largest cities in the country. Detroit was ranked number 10 in being one of the most welcoming cities in the country. And that's truly something to celebrate in just 4 to 5 years, all the progress that we've been able to make. And we will hear from Jemison to hear a little bit more from the mayor's office.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all having a great time enjoying Spirit Plaza here as I am. I want to say thank you, a special thank you to Member Castañeda Lopez for your leadership on this issue. You have been tireless on this topic. Every moment that I've seen you, every time I meet with you, this is a subject of interest and looking for progress on milestones every day. So thank you very much for your attention to this topic. On behalf of the mayor's office, I want to welcome each of you to the celebration and the beginning of the week right now. This is a critical part of the work we do, making sure every Detroiter, wherever they're from, that's here, feels welcome in their community, and making sure that new folks who come to the community from all over the world feel the same way. It's a critical part of the way we are trying to run the city in partnership with the City Council. I think it's no surprise as a result that the city was named number 10. Now, you know, we're like in the top 25 cities in terms of population. We're one of the major, or obviously the most important city in America. But I think for us to be number 10 on welcoming cities is an incredibly important distinction and one that we are really proud of. Now, the reason we got it was because we worked hard and worked together. So one of the parts of that vision that's been important to me has been opening inside of the Housing and Revitalization Department an Office of Immigrant Affairs, which is one of the reasons we won number 10 on the ranking. And I'm also pleased, and I have a chance to personally invite someone I've been trying to bring to the city for some time, Alberto Torres, who was mentioned earlier as the director of the Office of Immigrant Affairs here at the city. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is something important to mention, which is the Municipal ID. Municipal ID was and if you want to find out how to get one, go right over there and talk to that young lady who's waving her hand. This is a critical part also of creating a welcoming environment for new Detroiters and for immigrants who've been in this community for hundreds of years. Is making sure that there's a way for you to get identity cards that you can use to get access to a whole range of services. It's an important part of what we do as well. So I'm here just to say thank you to you, Member Castaneda Lopez, and the council for your leadership, and to be part of kicking off this week and celebrating the ways that the city, both through its legislative branch and its executive branch, has prioritized this issue, and looks forward to working with you all week and every week on this subject all throughout the districts of the city. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And as Director Jemison mentioned, if you want more information about Detroit ID, you can stop right over here to the table. And with that, we'd like to bring up Roberto Torres, who just started last week as the new director of the Office of Immigrant Affairs.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Before I begin, I just need to tell you just one incident that just brought to mind what happened just a short time ago last year. So I came here last year to actually welcome the consul who was coming in out of Canada to become the General Counsel of Mexico here in Detroit. And so when he saw me today, he approached me and he said, I come here to welcome you to Detroit because I'm now here from Grand Rapids. And so thank you, Counsel, for the welcome. Muchísimas gracias. It's my honor to join you in a celebration of diversity. For many of you, it's the first time we meet. My path to Detroit, Michigan started in Coahuila, Mexico, when my father, Juan Torres, immigrated to this country with my mother and 3 of my siblings. In the 1950s, they settled in Northwest Ohio, and they gave birth to 10 more children. I am a product of the migrant life. As a child, my brothers and I labored in the fields. I attended college, served in the United States Marine Corps, later worked in 5 mayoral administrations in Ohio. Most recently, I lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I was the director of the Hispanic Center and then director of One Wyoming, a business community initiative promoting international relations. There is one experience while working in the city of Canton, Ohio, that reflects on what this week is all about. As the Director of Economic and Community Development, we initiated a sister city relationship with Mexico. Since Canton is known as the Steel City with many companies like Timken and Republic Steel, we sought out cities that had a mutual interest. Known as the Detroit of Mexico, one of those cities was Saltillo, Coahuila, Mexico. I met with the mayor of Saltillo and the governor of Coahuila. I couldn't help to think at that time that international exchange didn't happen by chance. It was my father's history and my understanding of language, culture, and the customs of Mexico that made this mutually benefit economic partnership possible. A city in the U.S. prospered because of its leadership and the residents and the community that was extended a welcome to this country by my father, Juan Torres. This week is a celebration of similar immigrant stories, of their dreams and successes. It's also a week to appreciate the work of the Office of the Mayor, of Detroit City Council, and of Councilwoman Castaneda Lopez, and many of you who advocated for this office. Indeed, Detroit makes good on its nickname, the Comeback City. It will happen because of its diverse communities, languages, cultures, and the people that we welcome and will be a part of that history. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you, Director Torres. And with that, we'd like to call to the front Nada from the International Institute. Long before the Immigration Task Force was formed and I was still in college, the International Institute had been doing tremendous work, really advocating and highlighting the diverse communities in the city of Detroit. And they played a major role in helping us to pull this week together. So I'd like to hear a couple words from them.
In all languages, Good evening, everyone. My name is Nada Delgamuni. I am the Global Education Director for the International Institute, which is next year, in 2019, we will be marking our centennial in serving the community in immigration, social services, and education. I worked to the Office of the International Institute 30 years ago, and I was having my little dream of establishing Children Helping Children, which is a multimedia, multicultural program that focused on the need of children. 30 years ago, there was no such a thing as social media and computers, that everybody carrying in their own hand. But my dream was to establish a group of children of all different nationality. They come together to do concerts, showcase their cultural heritage, and do that for the benefit of organizations that have disadvantaged children or serve disadvantaged children. There is one good reason why I moved from Honolulu, Hawaii to Michigan. I was flying to visit my brother here, who was a physician in DMC. And he introduced me to the best of what Detroit has to offer. In the second flight I am coming to visit, there is a jerk in the airplane who said, for those who's going to leave us in Los Angeles, enjoy sunny California. And those who continue with us to Detroit, do you have your gun? And I walked to the front of the airplane like a very good teacher, and I waved by my fingers in his face, and I said to him, your mama never put a pepper or soap in your mouth, because this is not a way to introduce a state. I said, have you been there? And if you have been there, you probably stay staring at the ceiling in your hotel. And I walked back to my seat. And I made the decision, I am moving to Detroit because this is the city that I believe that the world is born to see, citizen of the world and ambassador of peace coming from this city. With that said, I have been working with the International Institute. Here is our table. There is information available for you about all different programs we offer. And thank you so very much. Thank you for having us.
So all of this work would not be possible with the members of the Immigration Task Force, and my co-chair and leader with me, Sophia Chu, is the head of the Caribbean community, many, many things that she does, and so we're going to hear a little bit about her participation.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming and spending the evening with us. It is my honor and pleasure to represent the Caribbean Community Service Center in my role as the executive director, and also the City of Detroit Immigration Task Force as the co-chair. We started the task force in 2014, and just to watch the phenomenal growth over the 4 years have been amazing. It offers us inclusivity and diversity in everything that it does. We talk about different people living here in the city of Detroit and calling it home. I am an immigrant myself from the beautiful country of Jamaica. People ask why you leave Jamaica. Sometimes it's not because we want to leave, but because there are opportunities here in the United States that makes it so much better for us from a financial standpoint. But trust and believe, I go home every year, and I'm hoping that everybody else will also go to my home or my region and make it a part of your travel destination. We have been involved or work so hard to be involved in everything that the city does. We've been here since the 1920s. A lot of us don't know that about Caribbean people. We've been on the east side of Detroit. There's a Western American Association Hall that's been there since the 1920s, and we have flourished here. So again, thanks so much, City of Detroit, for offering us a space for you guys to hear our voices, for us to be involved in any process that goes on, policy making and so forth. And I encourage anybody that wants to be involved to see what the Immigration Task Force is about. We do have meetings on a regular that you can participate in, and we also have different organizations that you can be a part of that has an ear into what we're doing. My organization will be here on Wednesday. We'll be here from 5 till 7, and we will have display of the 38 countries that we represent, and also let you know what we are doing in the city and how you can be involved with us. I think you may have touched a lot on I'm sorry, it's not that I'm Jamaican, that's why I was late. I actually have about 4 or 5 jobs, and the last one ended about 5 o'clock, and I needed to come from Midtown to get to here, so I do apologize for being a little bit late. So I don't know if you talked a lot about what the task force was doing. Did you need me to touch on that at all? Okay, all right.
Sophia, awesome. Thank you. For those of you that missed it yesterday, this weekend we celebrated Mexican Independence Day, the 208th anniversary, and the new consulate did an amazing, passionate reenactment of El Grito. If you missed it, maybe he'll give us a brief preview again today. But with that, I'd like to call to the podium, El Consulado from Mexico, Fernando González Saife.
Thank you very much, Council Member Raquel Castañeda, dear friends, colleagues. On behalf of the Mexican Consulate, we extend, of course, our congratulations for celebrating and strengthening cultural diversity in the great city of Detroit. And while I was coming here thinking that managing diversity nowadays and respecting cultural identities is a fact all over the world, Mexico shares this reality. In Mexico, more than 30 different ethnic and indigenous groups coexist, speaking many languages. And I am sure that with this initiative, Detroit will also find ways of forging unity among diversity. And welcome to its land, that it has been doing for so many years, people of latitudes, Europeans, Asians, Hispanics, Africans. And also the reflection is that immigrants need not to deny their commitment to their families in their countries of origin while developing loyalties to their new countries and cities. There is no trade-off between diversity and state unity. Multicultural policies are the answer to build diverse and unified states. For example, in Detroit, we find many Mexicans and Hispanics. And I want to tell you that in Mexico, we are proud of their achievements in the US, clearly depicted by the enormous contributions of Mexican immigrants to the economic, social, cultural, and political life of this great nation. Mexican immigration has brought to the US skilled laborers ideas which have enriched people's lives without them having to renounce to their heritage. Council Member Raquel Castañeda, congratulations again. I'm sure that by recognizing and accepting diversity, the US and Detroit will continue to find a stronger commitment to unity. Bravo, thank you.
Thank you so much. And on this side, in the city of Detroit, someone leading the community forward, the head of the reestablished Mexican CDC, Ray Lozano.
Hey, Steve. Thank you, Councilwoman Castaneda Lopez. My name is Ray Lozano, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mexican Town Community Development Corporation. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here with the City of Detroit's first annual Welcoming Week 2018. And it's such a pleasure for me to represent the Southwest Detroit area, the Mexican town area, the Latino community of Southwest Detroit. I'd have to state that they're part of District 6, Raquel's District 6, and the 3 zip codes that I represent are basically the 3 zip codes that continue to add population to the city of Detroit's numbers, so we're very proud of this. Also, if you're not familiar with Southwest Detroit, we're located right at the foot of the Ambassador Bridge, and it's much larger than that immediate area. The 3 zip codes and beyond have been a destination for countless immigrants that have come to this community, come to Detroit, to create a better life for themselves and their families. So we're very proud of that historic district. We've got a booth over there on the other side of the Mexican Council. And while they're trying to convince you to go to Mexico to vacation, I would ask you to stop by our booth and engage in some conversation, not only about Mexicans, but Latinos in Southwest Detroit, and encourage you to visit the beautiful area of Southwest Detroit. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Ray. Oftentimes when we talk about immigration, it really is just a conversation about the Latino community, but we know that immigration is an issue that impacts all of us. And so for us, again, as a task force in the city of Detroit, it's important to make sure all of those voices are heard. And you've heard from some of those other groups often forgot about. Several other groups that we'll hear from next is Safwan Ahmed from the Bangladeshi community. A lot of people think everyone lives in Hamtramck from the Bangladeshi community, but that's not true. We have a significant population in the city of Detroit, and Safwan will share a little bit more.
I'm going to just use this so the paper doesn't fly out from me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Safwan Ahmed. I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit. My grandfather came to the United States before World War II, so this is when the Asian Exclusion Act was still in place in America, and it made it very hard for immigrants from Asian countries to come in. He worked and lived in New York for a few years before traveling back to Bangladesh to later start his family. A few years later, my father and my oldest uncle were born, and since they were both the oldest in the family tradition, the oldest boys were sent off to the new country. So my father and my uncle originally traveled to New York and lived here, and my uncle left New York to work for a Ford Motor Company here in Detroit. My father remained and attended college in New York, and they both, as the years went on, they got married. My uncle married my aunt, and then my father married my mother, and it was one of the years my uncle and aunt decided to make the holy pilgrimage of Hajj to Mecca. And they needed a babysitter to take care of their 3 kids, which are my cousins. And so like any older brother does, my uncle reached out to my father, who was his younger brother, and asked him to babysit his kids. My mother and father agreed, and they traveled from New York for about 2 weeks. They lived here in Detroit. And my mother was pregnant with me at the time, and they ended up just loving the experience here in the city of Detroit. And my mom decided for all 3 of us that Detroit would be our home from then on. And they decided to move here and make this our home. Fast forward to now, my parents ultimately raised a family of 6 children. My 5 younger sisters and I all are graduates of the Detroit public school system. We've all graduated from Wayne State University and are still pursuing degrees. And working as residents of the city of Detroit and making the community a better place for everyone. Our community, the Bangladeshi community, went from just 8 to 10 different families to nearly 6,000 Bangladeshi residents in the city of Detroit today. And the same can be said of our neighbors in Hamtramck. They have a similar makeup, about 6,000 residents there as well. Our community organically happened. We've strengthened our neighborhoods, our schools. We've added to the city's business landscapes with clothing stores, restaurants, grocery stores, but most importantly, we added to the flavor of Detroit. This was all made possible, of course, because of our predecessors that took on the risk. And not just our forefathers, like our grandfathers and uncles and everyone, but I'm talking about the African-American residents of Detroit pre- and post-civil rights movement, and the work that the African-American community did investing in the city from residents of all colors to make it a more welcoming city. And we see the impact today here in the city. And today it's our duty to continue upholding and honoring their sacrifices and work by maintaining Detroit as a welcome and just city for all. For those who remain through the city's tough times, to the soon-to-be immigrant that's waiting for that letter saying, yes, you can come to America, to our sisters and brothers that are undocumented. I want them to know that you have allies here in the city of Detroit, and we'll continue to push forward for a better life together.
Thank you, Safwan. And one of the other very strong immigrant communities in the city of Detroit, the African community, again, often a community not really acknowledged or thought of. But here today with us is Ms. Sadie Sarr, a very powerful voice and advocate for the African immigrant community.
Assalamu alaikum, dalal ak jàmm ci Detroit, which means, peace be with you, and welcome to the city of Detroit in Wolof. Safwan told half of my story, and it's funny how our immigrant stories cross each other and are very similar. I came here 15 years ago to resettle in Detroit because my husband an African American from Detroit that I met in France said, hey, let's go and make a family and settle in Detroit. So I showed up in Detroit with 2 of my luggages and a dream to be part of the city, a dream to grow with the city, a dream to contribute, a dream to build a better life while I'm here. As many of the African immigrants who are in the city, we are like all the other immigrants, we work hard, we invest, we open businesses, and we raise our children in the city. In the last 15 years, I have been humbled and happy to be in a city where the community organizers and the officials have understood the importance of building from diversity. And beyond the racial divide that we see in this country, or beyond even the segregational divide that you see in the city of Detroit, because it's still one of the most segregated cities in the state, it is very humbling to witness community organizers, lay leaders, and officials agreeing to work hard as they can to create and nurture an environment that you don't find nowhere else out of the country but in Detroit. And from that, like they said earlier, the Detroit City ID was born, the Immigration Task Force was born. You know, we walk on the path of other organizations like Global Detroit who also help, you know, communities and students work together and stay in the city once they graduate from the city. And I am very, very happy to sit here in 2018 as we are edging alongside the next midterm in the climate that we are, to be able to be, it is more than symbolic to sit here today and say thank you for allowing Detroit to start our very first welcoming week. And I think this is more than a symbol, and thank you everybody to be here, and hopefully we can continue pushing this conversation further. Bye.
Thank you, Sadie. And last but not least, from one of our oldest communities in the city of Detroit, many people think that there's no longer a Chinatown or that the Chinese community's moved out and isn't here. But we have representatives with us tonight from the Chinese American Association to speak a little bit about the community.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. And you know, when I first got here, I'm just thinking, I was in the wrong outfit. I should wear my qipao, my traditional outfit. It's beautiful, and then, you know, just to showcase our culture. Good evening. My name is Shenlin Chen. I am the Vice President of the Association of Chinese Americans. I would like to, on behalf of our the Board of Directors and also our President Roland Wang, to congratulate the Detroit City Council for organizing, hosting this wonderful event and the wonderful initiative. It's a long overdue project or good things that the city should do. For Asian and especially for Chinese Americans that I represent today, I would say it's been a long journey since the Exclusion Act and also Vincent Chin, the incident 30 years ago. So, you know, it's really a happy moment today to see this is really happening. We are a nonprofit 501c3 and the Michigan chapter. A Michigan chapter of a national organization, OCA. OCA has 50 chapters across the country and is mainly serving the Asian and Chinese Americans. Currently, ACA operates 4 service centers in 3 different counties, and including the one that we established here in Detroit, and that's our first one in 1989. So it's been a long time that we've been in existence in Detroit, and then so Detroit is no stranger to us. And we're so proud to say that ever since we established in 1972, we never missed a day working in the city and working with the city. And we have been strive to continue to provide vital service to immigrants from different parts of the world. We've been serving people from China, from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, for Southeast Asia, just different countries and that speak different languages. And we're so proud that we can be, great help of them. And then for come to Detroit, we know as a newcomer or immigrants, we want them to be safe, to feel safe. We want them to feel like this is the place. Yes, this is the place I want to stay. And this is the place I want to build my home. And this is the place I want to pursue my dream. So this is what we're trying to do. And then we have been through many up and downs with the city of Detroit in the past almost 5 decades now. And we're really, really proud that we've been here, and we're still here to witness the revitalization of this great city. And then we know, how important that we have to build out this community through partnership, through collaboration. So we're just very grateful that we're part of this this entire project. So coming up this weekend, maybe some of you already know that there will be a Chinatown Festival event happening in Detroit. It's a huge event, and then I overheard that so almost 10,000 people signed up on Facebook that they're going to come. So I invited you to maybe stop by if you have time to just to enjoy the food and the culture activities, and I believe that will be a time that you will spend for your weekend. And I believe this event itself explain and it's also a statement that Detroit is a welcoming place. So people from overseas, starting to thinking about investment, for different type of investment to come to Detroit. So I'm just so great to see this. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone, again, for coming out. Unfortunately, our representatives from the Arab American community didn't make it today, but they will be here. So make sure that you come out tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Today we have representatives from the Mexican consulate. We have different vendors over here. I believe tomorrow and Wednesday will feature performances and vendors from the Caribbean and the African community. Thursday will feature the Chinese community, and Friday will be the Bangladeshi community. So each day you can not only have you'll see performances and vendors and food, but as well as can learn a little bit about the community and the history in the city of Detroit, but also the community as a whole. And so just want to thank, again, everyone on the Immigration Task Force, the city of Detroit, the mayor's office, as well as all the groups that couldn't be here today, but all the groups that played a role over the past decades to really create a welcoming community in the city of Detroit. In terms of from economic inclusion, Global Detroit, we have Steve Tabachman here as the executive director. Global Ties, they're not here tonight with us, but all of the organizations that worked around refugee resettlement to immigrant integration, from schools to social services to economic opportunities. And with that, we'd like to close out the conference for tonight. If you have any questions, we are more than happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure. I know there's only a couple of folks from the media. If not, we will jump off stage and then let the performances begin. Thank you so much.